Hey everybody, happy Monday and welcome to the weekly Q&A. As always, I have questions from all of you, either through coaching calls or DMs in the community, and so we'll jump right in. So the first question is around the offer, and the scenario is I want a CIO job, and I think I'm tracked based on my current role, but the previous roles I feel make me look too junior. And so how do I address that with my resume? And so I did ask clarification on this one. And so this one is a scenario where the current job is big in scope, really sort of getting on the verge of CIO. But then like the previous jobs, there was like a big jump between the last job and this job. And so the concern was, well, my second job doesn't look quite as senior. Is that going to be negative, right? And the way to think about this is just again, this idea that your resume is a marketing flyer. You control the narrative, you control what is shared, you control what is highlighted. You have a lot of sort of narrative control about what people see. And so the simple answer here is just make sure that the current role takes up more space, right? So typically you would see, kind of professional summary or the value proposition up top, some, maybe some bullets is typically the way we do in terms of kind of key competencies, your current role, the second role, and then previous roles. This trick is nobody really cares about your previous roles. So your current role is why you get hired, right? Because I don't really care what you did 5 or 10 years ago. It's interesting. It kind of gives me context of your growth path, but you're not doing the same thing. So I'm hiring you based on your current role and then maybe the previous role, right? Just to kind of connect those two. And then again, what I'm going to look for the other roles is just growth, continuity, where did you start, just some sort of background information. And so the short answer is make your current role even bigger. So typically we would say like 5 to 7 bullets, make them 8 or 10 bullets, or make the bullets 3 lines instead of 2 lines. Just make it visually take up most of the space. So you have kind of a third on that summary stuff. Most of the next part of the first page should be your current role, and then all the previous ones you can kind of bump to the previous page. I mean, page two. Okay, so that's the idea. Again, you just want to emphasize the things that are aligned. And then in any previous roles, make sure that you think creatively about the titles to make sure that they align to where you want to go. But ultimately, what do you want me to see? Whatever you want me to see, you should expand that. You should talk more about that and less about the things that I don't care about. And that's a universal, right? Depending on whatever the job is. And so you want to just basically emphasize the things that you think make you qualified for the role, in this case, the CIO, right? And de-emphasize the stuff that's not. So that's the basic advice for any resume. But in this position, again, just expand the role that you think is important and then shrink the ones that are previous and not as aligned or impressive for that. Okay. Next question is in the leads category. That's a good one. How much should I tailor my resume for position? And it all depends on how much you want the position, right? And that's really the gauge you should do is the more you want it, the more work you need to do, right? So the basic is I have my generic resume, I just send that in. I would almost never recommend that because it's just not going to work, right? It's not tailored in any way unless it's a perfect match just inherently, it's probably not going to get picked up. So at a minimum, I always suggest you make sure that the titles align. So whatever the job title is that you're going for, make sure that's kind of what the top of your resume says. Make sure your opening executive value proposition is aligned to that role. And then the third step would be kind of make sure the bullets are in priority order based on what the job needs. So, for some jobs they need 0.4, so for some jobs they need 0.2, whichever one they need, make that 0.1. So just bump them up depending on the job. And then the more you want it, the more you tailor your resume, the more you sort of swap out bullets. And really at a certain point though, you should spend your effort networking, right? That's really the differentiator. So tailor it till you've got it basically fully aligned, but don't over index on that. Just having a perfect resume isn't necessarily going to help you if you're number 500 on the list, right? If they have 500 applicants and you're the last one, they're not going to see you. So at a certain point, like tailor it, make sure it aligns very directly to the role. Again, those top sections are the most important things to do. I wouldn't bother tailoring like page 2 of your resume for any reason. Then it's about networking. Then it's about getting the context, which is a whole other thing. Obviously, we have all that stuff in the community, but basically make sure that you do the basic due diligence. But then any more time, I would actually suggest you get it talking to people, not refining the resume. All right, next question. So this is in the interview process. Can the recruiter help me prepare for the interview? It's actually a great question because it all depends on who the recruiter is. right? So there's three varieties here that you would think about, right? So one is a standard recruiter who is there to fill the position. They work for the company and they are there to fill the position. In general, they won't necessarily help you much, and they probably, wouldn't really take kindly to being asked to be helped. You can ask for information about the process and all that kind of stuff. But typically it's a little more transactional. Like they're talking to, they have to screen 20 people. They're just talking to you. They're just trying to get a good slate for the hiring manager. And those recruiters basically will not help you. Not that they don't want to help you, but that's just not part of what they do, right? Occasionally you get lucky and you seem to develop a relationship with that recruiter. They seem to really like you and would like to have you land this role. Occasionally they will throw you a few crumbs about what they're thinking could be helpful for you to highlight in your interview. But in general, again, they work for the hiring manager. They're only going to help you if they think it's going to be actually a good fit, right? So if they think you're an amazing candidate, they will turn around and start to help you, but they already think you're an amazing candidate. So the advice is not about helping you be a better candidate because they already know that you are. So if they work for the company, in short, you're not going to get a lot, right? If it's a sort of contracted recruiter, particularly an executive recruiter, but again, that you kind of get those a little later, but the executive recruiters are people who are paid to place you absolutely will help you. Because what's the business model, right? In this business model, in the first one, it's I work for the company, I'm here for the hiring manager, my compensation, my bonus, my rating is based on my boss, the HR lead, and then the feedback from my clients who are the hiring managers. So I'm doing whatever it takes to get them happy. And if helping you gets them happy, maybe I'll do that. But in general, I want to be objective, I want to be good. So I'm not necessarily incented to help you in any way. I'm incented to get the best candidate. When you move to this world, you say, how are they incented? They are incented because they are basically for contract recruiters who have to go find people. How do they get compensated? Is they get paid when you take the job. When you take the job, they get paid often typically a year salary, a year comp. It's big money. So in that case, again, in this contract world, especially executive recruiters are very much like this. They get compensated by putting you in the role and getting you hired. So they want to do everything they can to get you hired. So if you're working with an executive recruiter, they will actually coach you. They will work with you and say, this is exactly what they're looking for. You have this, and this in your resume. Focus on, C, D, and E. These are the things they want. Oh, I worked with this guy for years. Here's the kind of person he's looking for. So you need to emphasize this, and this. They will give you very specific instructions on how they think it's going to be best positioned for you. So can a recruiter help you? Absolutely. As you get up in your career, you're going to move more into the executive recruiter world. Then you will have an executive recruiter who is basically working with you to try to place you, because by that point, you're getting paid a lot of money. They get paid a lot of money if they can place you. And so once you're in that world, absolutely they can help, and that's a great place to be. If it's just a recruiter, again, you can try to develop a relationship and getting a little bit of inside tips and stuff like that, but in general, they're not incented to help you as a candidate. So that's, again, just the two worlds of recruiters to think about. Okay, presence. I just landed a director role from senior manager. Congratulations, awesome. How do I show up as a director? So this is it's a broad question, and in short, go to the executive presence section of the community and just look at all those videos and tools and all that kind of stuff. So there's a lot to it, but the most basic delta in terms of shifting your mindset from, again, that either senior manager, director, or director to VP, depending on where you are, right, is you're not paid to do things anymore. Like, this is the most important insight you have to have, is that you're not paid to execute anymore. Of course, you still need to do it, but that's not why you were made a director. You're made a director because you're supposed to contribute to the more strategic, visionary, direction setting part of the puzzle, right? And so the analogy I use is working in the factory or on the factory. So if you have a factory that produces widgets, right? Are you working on the line? Are you walking along and saying, okay, this is good. Here's a bottleneck. Okay, let me help you. What are you doing? Like, are you walking the line all the time? Or are you designing the factory? Okay, we're going to have a new product. How are we thinking about the factory? Do we have the right layout? Do we have the right processes? Do we have the right people? Do we have the skills? That's really what differentiates the sort of director and above roles, is you are working on the factory, no longer in the factory. You're no longer managing the plant. You should have people doing that. You're designing the factory, right? And again, that director role, you kind of have to still do both, which is why it's one of the most trickiest roles. but you're probably good at managing the factory. That's what you were paid to do. And now you want to add on designing the next generation of the factory. Is it going to fit for the future? And what do you need to do? What resources do you need, etc. Right? So spend more of your time, again, strategy, vision, direction, competitive threats. There's many sort of breakdowns in this. And again, go to the community, go to the course. You'll learn a lot about it. But again, very simple question. What are you doing right now? Is that managing the factory or is that building the next one? Right? That's an easy way to kind of differentiate the two. And that's the major mindset shift that you have to have as you kind of move up the ranks. Okay, one more question here in the results section. So any suggestions on creating a strategy document for my group? So again, new role, you want to sort of set yourself apart. You want to create a strategy document. And while there are many different aspects of this, again, for the Q&As, I'll usually just pick one. And the main thing when you think about a strategy document, it has two purposes, right? One is, wow, you wrote a strategy document. It exists. It's an anchor. Are people going to read it? Eh, just to be honest, like, maybe they'll scan it. They might read it, but they'll read it and they'll forget about it. So one purpose of a strategy document is to have an anchor that people know that exists. Again, it's actually not about the content. I mean, it has to have good content because somebody will read it. So it's not, it has to be good. But its intended purpose is for people to know it exists. Most people will not read, or even if they do read, they will not remember the detailed context if it's a 5 to 7 page strategy document. So it needs to exist. It needs to be good, but the content is less important than the fact that it exists. We have a strategy. It is there. People can go read it just psychologically, right? They need to know it exists. The more important thing is what are people going to remember from a 5 to 7 page strategy document? And that as a leader is actually the more important job, right? You're not going to memorize 5 to 7 pages. So what do I want you to remember? And you want to design the document. You want to design some maybe one-page summary of the document. You want to design some sort of slogans and things that are going to stick, right? And there's actually a good book called Made to Stick by Dan and Chip Heath. They actually go into this idea, but like, how do you get things to stick with your teams? And that's when you think of a strategy document. That's actually the more important part. Like, what are they going to remember? What's in it for them? Like, why do they care? It's wonderful that you have this great strategy. It's wonderful that you're thinking about it, but how does that affect me? Like in my job, doing this thing that I do, right? How does it affect me and how I'm going to remember what this thing is? That's actually the more important part in terms of, what's my role? What's going to happen to me? Like make sure that that comes out of the document. Because if it just describes this future vision, that's wonderful, but it may create a lot of dissonance or questions in the staff because they're like, okay, I get it. You're going that way, but I don't know how I fit in that way. And that's obviously not what you want to do. You want to kind of bring people along. So when you write strategy documents, again, big topic, but just for today, yes, it's great to have it. That's kind of classic, but the more important thing is how are people going to see it? What's their takeaway? What's in it for them? If you think that through and do that right, everything else becomes easier as you try to roll out and actually execute on your strategy. All right. So those are the questions for today. As always, just drop me a note, DM me if you have any questions, and we will add them to the next week. All right, everybody, have a great week, and we will see you in the community.